Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. Today it's December 9th, if I'm correct, as I'm traveling to the future as I tape this. And real quick, everybody, if it is the 9th and the 10th, I am at Wisecrackers in Pennsylvania at the Mohegan Sun. Come see that show. It's at 9 o'clock. I'm actually with Sonia King, Animal Communicator. We're doing that show, so come see us tonight. Also, don't forget about the Patreon. I love the Patreon. Join it. There's extra Paranormal Karen episodes for as cheap as $5. And then there's fun with tarot. So Patreon /Rontowski. Or just join my email list at karenrontowski.com. Very excited about my guest today, Jennifer Holtz. Don't be confused with Hots, even though she's hot. From the Curious Cat podcast. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? I thought for sure you were going to say Jennifer Holtz for some reason.
No, but we could do that if you like.
No, I feel like it's too long, but I'm great. I'm so glad to be here. How are you doing today?
I am doing okay. I am just waiting for 2022 to end. I know people didn't like 2020. They didn't like 2021, but 2022 has been whenever people like happy to see a year go, I'm like, whatever, it's another day. No, I will be having a party New Year's Eve.
Me too. It has been a zinger. I agree completely. And I just wanted to say right off the top, I am so sorry for the loss of the boss. And I am so grateful you shared his story and his life with us as a listener and a fan of your show. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. The boss is, there was something happened. I had a rough time and I felt him sleeping on my chest. I'm not sure where I am with another puppy yet, but sometimes I look at those pictures and I was like, it's not going to be better than that. So,
yeah.
But you're a cat
all
person.
love to you.
Thank you.
No. Okay. So the cat gets the heavy hand because of the name of the podcast, but that's because the art was done by my eldest daughter, Nora. And Curious Cat just felt right. But, Cooper, I am definitely a dog lover, and he is probably sitting right outside the door right now because as soon as I say the words Curious Cat, he just like tucks his tail and runs away. But
he's like, where's the Curious Dog podcast?
I'm the anxious dog. Where's that podcast?
The anxious dog. That's perfect. So tell me, my dear, how did you get started in sort of this weirdness? Where did your story begin? You sent me the greatest article. I want to hear more.
Well, it was definitely the experience of my father's passing, and I'm a writer before I was even a podcaster, and he just, we had quite an amazing journey together, just leading up to his passing when he was hospitalized, and then into the days leading up to his actual passing, and even the days after that. It just, it kind of blew my mind because I definitely have always believed in the spiritual realm. I've always been, both of my kids say that, I definitely can sense things and see some things, but the universe was basically smacking me over the head with a megaphone because I kind of just needed that support from the universe to get through it. Because my dad was my best friend, and not to be cheesy, and I don't mean to get the Kleenex out early, but he was just a really special human being. And we started out every morning over coffee, and we would text back and forth, and we would get to be so just raucous and inappropriate and laughing so hard. 2 states away, our dogs are barking because we're laughing so hard. And so to have him, be hospitalized and then during the time of COVID, and he was, his small town is on the Mendocino coast, and they didn't have the facility he needed. So he had to go inland 4 hours by ambulance. Wow. to be taken care of. And he is blind, So, and we couldn't have an advocate in the hospital with him. And so, I was the person that he confided in, his sheer terror. And so I was grateful to be in that space with him, and I would get him laughing about it and telling him about the ways I was going to abduct him. And, I'd go shopping for sexy nurse costume because I thought I could sneak in with sexy nurse. And, we joked back and forth. And as things were not going well with dialysis and he was flatlining and wasn't telling us when they did dialysis, he'd been in there for almost 4 weeks. He decided he wanted to get home and die on his own terms at home, surrounded by loved ones. So that was the next stage of our journey, is that my eldest daughter, who is, both my kids are launched and adults and amazing human beings. But she said, it's time for me to be there for you, Mom. So I'm going to come with you down to say goodbye to Grandpa.
And I want 2 questions real quick. So he didn't die of COVID. It was something else.
Yeah, no, it was just during the time of COVID. It was like he actually had juvenile diabetes, and we're going way back, where he was kind of an anomaly because he had lived so long with juvenile diabetes, and so that's part of why his eyesight had gone away in the last couple decades. Was that diabetes he lived with his whole life, and so he was an aberration. He shouldn't be around. The actuarial charts didn't cover my dad because he was just like, I'm gonna live.
I love that. I love that so much. I had a friend that had spina bifida that died in his late 50s, and he was way out. So your dad had lived decades being blind. Was that so? But he was okay, like in his home, because he was used to being blind, right? But then
absolutely,
you get out, and it's like, oh my God.
Weird exactly.
question: was he? They say when one of our senses goes, was he intuitive, or was there anything when his eyesight left him that another sense kind of kicked in?
Okay, I always asked him about that, and he, he probably would have said, thrown the F word out, like F no, I wish, kind of thing. But he is definitely, he never would have considered himself being woo or empathic, but he was a charmer. He could read a room like that. And so he always had these superpowers, I think. And then when his eyesight declined, he definitely felt most comfortable at home. And then it was crazy because when he was in hospitalized and we couldn't have an advocate there for him in the hospital, he just did what he does best, which is charm the staff. And he, had nicknames for everybody, and they all loved him. And so he did make the most of it so that they wouldn't, suffocate him with a pillow.
There's something charming about someone with a disability that there's a lot of disabled comics that it's either not bothering them, or they're like using it to flirt with the nurse or something. Like there's something, because we all want to go, exactly. And we're worried they're going to be angry because they have a disability, and they're like, I'm doing better than you. That's really
it's so true.
Wonderful. Yes. Okay. So those were my 2 questions. So everybody, your daughter comes down and you guys go down to help him out.
Exactly. So we knew that we fought to get him home. It was my brother and sister who were in the Bay Area. They were physically there at the hospital. It was the first time we were allowed to be there. We had the meeting with the palliative team, and Dad announced to us, here, I have this laundry list. I'm in Seattle, and I have my laundry list of all the resources I'm ready to plug in. We can send you to Sweden because they're doing something special with kidney transplant. I'm just ready to get on the table and cut mine out and shove it in my dad. And then he, made the decision for himself. And he said, no, I want to be home. I want to be surrounded by people that I love. And I want to pass away in my house. I want to be back in my house. And so we fought tooth and nail and got him on an ambulance and got the, hospital bed put in their parlor room in his home in Fort Bragg. And the ambulance drivers took him up the hill. It took 4 hours. And by the time they brought him in our house. They were shaking his hand and they said, "It is an honor to know you." He was still making friends right at the end. And so then there were already family members there, and I'm up in Seattle, and I had just been down there supporting my mom. And so my eldest, Nora, came here from Colorado, and then we flew down together. And I knew that we were on a timer because of the dialysis. It's like a 7 to 9 day window. And before she came, my eldest, they said, "We need to watch Duncan Trussell's Midnight Gospel." There's an episode where he is interviewing his mother, who in real life had stage 4 cancer. And so Nora said, that's our homework for the night before we go see Grandpa and say goodbye. So I was, we were 2 states away at that point. They were still in Colorado and I was here, and I watched the episode and I'm bawling my eyes out at the end of the kitchen counter, and I'm doing Legos obsessively, which was this weird obsession I picked up to survive this mentally. And I just was crying, and I said, "Universe, I need a sign that my dad, I know he's exiting. He's on the exit ramp, but is he going to be okay?" And I keep hearing this tap, tap, tap. And I was really annoyed because I'm like, okay, I need a sign. And then finally the tapping persisted. I turned around and there was a hummingbird outside the glass window, just tap, tap, tapping on the glass. And it was like, that was my sign. It was beautiful. And I thought, okay, we're going to be okay.
And hummingbirds hummingbirds have been known to carry souls, or they're seen after someone passes. So this was before.
Okay. Yeah, this was before. And it was, okay, that makes so much sense because the hummingbirds are kind of a recurring theme for his whole passing. And then even when I came back home after he passed. But we made it down to Fort Bragg, to the Mendocino. And as we were driving up the hill, I got a phone call from my mom, and she said, "He's not doing well. He had a hard night and he is kind of incoherent. So, and he's gesturing and he's talking to, invisible folks that we don't see. And so I'm sorry you're coming all this way just to not be able to have that moment with your dad." And at this point, Nora and I were singularly focused. We're like, we're here to support all of you and to hold Gary Riley's hand as he passes, and be there. So we were there supporting him, and that night, and he saw that I was there. He recognized Nora, made sure we were each holding his hand, and we got to have that tender time with them, and it was beautiful. And he was talking with, like, you could tell people maybe beyond the veil, but then he was there plugged in with us doing the whole Riley thing of, wait, what did we eat? What are we going to watch on TV? Which are the 2 key questions whenever our family gets together.
Now, did he, was he seeing animals?
He saw our his most beloved dog, Artemis, like our golden retriever that literally he made jokes about, "I'm going to have this animal stuffed and I'm going to wheel it around behind me. I love him so much." And when Artie's balls, his literal balls got chapped because of swimming in an over chlorinated pool, my dad loved him so much he put Vaseline on his balls. And so he was talking to Artemis, and Artemis was there in the room with them. He was saying hello to his parents. He was shouting, "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad," in such a joyful, boyish way. So we left that night and we thought, well, maybe Dad is going to pass in the evening. And then, and so we both, we got back to our hotel because we didn't want to overstuff the family home and everything. It was the time of COVID, so we didn't want to be Typhoid Mary and things. So we were staying in an inn down the coast from them. And that night, both of us were sleeping fitfully. And I kept thinking I was going to wake up Nora in the next bed over. Nora was afraid I was going to wake them up. And when we woke up and finally chatted in the morning, Nora had this dream where they were with my dad, with Grandpa Gary, and they were looking at space, and they were like, it was all shapes and numbers, and my dad was like, "You need to help me figure this out. You're the engineer in the family. Help me to figure, and the artist, help me to figure out what happens next in the beyond," basically. And then I had, at the same time at 4 a.m., because we both woke up at the same time, I had a dream that my dad was like holding my hand. He was definitely grounded in the earth. And he said, I'm pissed, Jen. I'm pissed. I just wanted more time. And I said, I understand, and I will let everybody know that. So we went back to the house, and it was beautiful because the winds had kicked up, and it was the 15th of March. It was the Ides of March. And at 1:11, he passed away. And it was horrifying and sad because, physically he was gone, but we were there. We got to be surrounding him in love. And across the alley is this very historic funeral home. It's called the Chapel by the Sea. And so my dad I'm talking for a decade, had made jokes about just catapult me across the alley when I pass. And so it was, we're making the Riley jokes. We have dark humor. We're like, Dad, we didn't build the catapult. And and we were there with them. And my dad, in 2 months prior to all of this happening, even being hospitalized, he'd said he wanted his ashes to be in a Folgers coffee can on the front porch, and he wanted a certain playlist. So we created the playlist together, and we got to play it as they took him in a gurney, and we followed him along in a procession across to Chapel by the Sea. So.
Was he a Big Lebowski fan?
No, I thought it was about that too. He just thought that Folgers coffee was the best, and he thought he'd fit perfectly in a can. And so even when he was in the hospital, I said, okay, Dad, I'm ordering it on Etsy, which I did. I ordered the can. And I said, do you want, I said, they have some green cans that don't have a lid. He goes, no, I don't want rust on my can. I need the red can, and decaf is for suckers. So I got the red can. And then he said about the Folgers can, he goes, well, so funny. Because I said, Dad, you're losing all this weight. You've shed all this weight in the hospital. And he said, okay, it has to be the 3.5 pound can then, smaller can. So I went back to the Etsy seller, and he had a 3.5 pound red Folgers coffee can.
So how come you had to go to Etsy? Do they not make Folgers anymore?
Well, they're plastic now. They're plastic, and my dad wanted like the 70s/80s, the metal can with a plastic lid, and it couldn't be rusty. And it was the damnedest thing, because when it arrived at the house, and my dad's ashes had arrived, and then the can arrived, I got this letter from, and the whole family was just elated, because this was my dad's last wish, is to have him in this Folgers can that the family could decorate for holidays. And we had, we were going to do fireworks on it. We would pour a little beer in on the, I don't know, St. Patrick's Day or whatever. And so the can arrives, and it couldn't have been more perfect. His ashes fit perfectly with all of our little love letters, folded on top, and it had a lid so it wouldn't rust, and and the cat couldn't get in there and use it as a litter box or whatever. So.
Oh, that's great.
It was beautiful. And and then I found out that the seller of the can, he's like, it's a small world, because he was from Spokane, Washington, where my dad was born. His oldest friend, the man that sold me the can, he had juvenile diabetes, and he had worked at the local university for years as an advocate of diabetes. And it's like, how could that be? These are the two aberrations in the whole nation that were, passed away over the age of 70 with juvenile diabetes. It was just so beautiful. It just told me the universe had our backs.
Okay. And I'm going to take a break right now, and then then I can't wait to hear what's next. Okay. Hold on, everybody, folks. We'll be right back.
Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Understanding's Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.
Okay, so I'm not going to even interrupt you. So he is in the coffee can, and what starts happening?
Okay, so then Nora and I returned home. It was really surreal because on the plane it was St. Patrick's Day, and of course the last name Riley, and they were like, whoever gave them in Santa Rosa bottles of wine, they were glugging it, and so half of the plane was intoxicated. And I'm just trying not to cry on the plane because I'm like, this is such a weird like wake or something. This is so weird. And so Nora and I said goodbye at SeaTac. I walked them to their plane connector to Denver, and I came home, and then a hummingbird was laying dead on my patio, out the window where it'd been tapping. So I lost my mind. I cried, and I was like, "Wait a second, universe! You said you'd be okay." And just felt awful. And I was like, wait a second, what does this mean? This goes against what the feelings we were getting when we were there, and the experience we had when we were like having this makeshift memorial for my dad when we were in Fort Bragg. And but it took to the next day when I got my phone out, and normally I would have been texting my dad during coffee time, and all of my family was reaching out, and I hear this tapping on the window, and there are two hummingbirds now that are like flittering around, and I'm like, okay, Dad, what does this mean? Are you okay, does this mean you're coming back? The next baby that's born is going to be baby Gary. What is this? What is this a sign of? And it was just a sign that he was doing okay. And, he was just absolutely fine. So I haven't had I thought maybe because I thought, oh, he loved me so much. We were best friends. He'll just show up, right? And I think he knows that would actually scare the crap out of me. So he's come in more subtle ways in dreams. And it's crazy because I'll have tandem dreams again with my daughter. I'll text them. I had this dream. We were at this weird theme park and Dad was there. And they'll say, I had this weird dream. And Dad was in his hospital bed. And he was like, don't let people touch my shit. Don't let them don't give away all my shit,
Well, another thing too, he may not have the capabilities just yet to come through in person.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
How long was this ago?
20... So it was a year. It'll be 2 years this March. Yeah.
Okay.
March 2023. It'll be 2 years. So it's crazy because I have been reading the Book of the Dead, and there's this Buddhas have a timeline too when people will decide what they want to do with their soul. If there's another soul contract and things that they want to glean and gather from earth again. And so he's in that time frame with the Buddhist time frame. So it just feels beautiful. But his voice was my favorite thing about my dad. I mean, I loved everything about him, but his voice was just, I kept telling him, you should do radio. And he always thought that was adorable because he didn't see it. But when his voice was missing, I missed that void. That's when I thought, I've gone so deep into the woo. Maybe I have something to say about this, because putting my grief, journey out there. Oh, I was going to say, this was the worst part of the grief journey, was when it seemed like everybody else had healed up around me. And I was kind of on my own to have, I'm missing Gary Riley days, kind of moments. And I didn't want anybody to feel alone in their grief, because I think that's the worst place to be, when you feel like, okay, the world has a timeline of be over it in a week or whatever. And so that was another pressure point on getting a podcast started, to just start writing, but then putting it in a different format for people, so that mostly people would never feel alone in that time. And it's okay to be a hot mess. And I am the perfect person to text or call when you've lost a loved one, because I'll be the one that goes, oh, this is crap. Isn't it the crappiest thing? Instead of trying to make people feel better, or it gets better with time, I just kind of will flip off them in my mind and go, no, it's just awful. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And I will sit with you during this. So it's been a weird little journey. I've learned about death doulas, and I'm very drawn to that. I've been reading about Ram Dass and him explaining that death is as easy as taking off a tight shoe. And I cling to those things and just go, we had the most perfect death for my father. I mean, with everything that was happening in the world, we got him the most perfect death. He got to be at home. We got tender care of him. We got to stand outside and, where he was walked across to the funeral home. We got to be there when he was cremated. We were right outside that space having a memorial. My sister, my mom, and my eldest, and it was beautiful. It was,
so he still shows up in dreams and still the hummingbirds, right?
yeah, he does. But then, okay, so this last weekend, I was supposed to go home to the Mendocino coast to see my mom and hold my dad's can and watch crappy TV and just do what Rileys do. And I couldn't do it. My husband's out of town and I have a dog that he has some like lumbar issues. So putting him in the kennel for a few days would really hurt his body. So I said, I've got to put it off and to, put it ahead a couple weeks or whatever. And so my dad kept sending things like birds to like dive bomb my car and poop on the windshield. And I said, okay, Gary Riley, I'm rescheduling the trip. So he was having little tantrums with me because I wasn't driving up his coast and holding his can. So I made my mom kiss the can and tell dad he'll be fine. I'll be there in a few weeks.
Oh, that's adorable. Do you do any ghost hunting or investigating, or just more of a curious from the outside?
Well, it's curious from the outside, but actually, I have had I don't know what happened when my dad passed away, but it has opened up this weird thing. So I had a jinn sighting at the grocery store.
Wow.
And it was like a month ago. I was preparing an episode that is on the show now, and it's like shadow people and sleep paralysis. And it was crazy because I hadn't done the research yet. I'd read a couple books, but I hadn't done a ton of research. And I had to go to the grocery store because probably we were out of like 3 things: milk, dog biscuits, and, was something else. So I go to the grocery store, which I absolutely hate going to the store. I have to hype myself up to do it. I go to the grocery store, I walk in, and there's this old man that looks pretty frail. So he's kind of tottering around, and he kept being kind of in the middle of the aisle. And so I kind of have to wiggle around him. But there was this young man behind him who was really thin, like kind of, very thin. Is it okay to say tweaker thin? Sure. And he had this like waxy yellow skin, and was kind of behind him in a tank top, and he was really thin, and he was just like behind the guy and over to the side of him. And so I had to squish around him, and I'm like, I need 3 items, and every item I needed, they were kind of in the way. So I was like, ooh. And so I was trying to be really polite, and I had to get around him. So when I go to checkout, I went to the self checkout area with my 3 items, and the old man is standing in the middle of all the kiosks, and so is the other guy, and the other guy's like has his arm over his chest, clutching the other arm that's hanging to his side. And I see that his hand is covering up something, and he drops it. And I see this fur, like infinity sign in fur on his arm. It's like bear fur. And I went, whoa. And I looked at his eyes, and I'm like, they were just like literally like black marbles. It was so weird. And he didn't seem to even notice me. And so I checked out, and then I got in my car, and I said, you don't have permission to like be around me. And I'm like, I don't have salt with me, but I'm like, I just am going to sing some 80s music on the way home because I don't think he'll like happy vibes. And I got home and I started doing research, and I'm like, what just happened to me? So I'm texting with both of my daughters because they totally get me, and they're very much like me. They're such delightful people. And they were like, oh my God, Mom, what was that? Is that okay? That's freaky. And I said, I think it was a jinn. And then I started doing research, and sure enough, shadow people, some cultures believe that they are jinn, that they come in the form of shadow people, and that sleep paralysis can sometimes be them. And they can be good. They can be not so good, actually, which I learned. I always thought jinn were negative, but I
No.
didn't want them associated with me.
Yeah, I remember hearing a story of a guy used to get up at, I forget where he was living. It was, uh, what is the Jewish holiday where they don't eat all day?
Oh, is it Cedar? No. Oh,
It might have been something like that.
Purim. No.
So he was in the
What
Middle
is
East and he had an apartment, and 6 a.m, something starts rattling the pans. Every 6 a.m, rattling the pans, and he can see them moving. And someone said, "Oh, that's the jinn. They're worried that you're not going to get to eat if you don't get up, because then it's sunup." So,
Yes,
so there are some
exactly.
good, mostly bad, but
Well, that was the feeling I got with this older man when I knew that it didn't follow me home. I was okay to like decompress it in a safe space, because my house is basically like a Faraday cage. Like try to get in here energy, but anyway, so I was okay to think about this experience, and it really seemed like he was helping the older man in a strange way. He was there assisting him, and it wasn't a negative way, and maybe there was an energy exchange that was symbiotic that I didn't understand, but it was really interesting.
was the man Middle Eastern or no? Couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell because he had like grayish white hair, and he and it's the summer in Seattle and we've actually had sun, so he was kind of tan, but I'm olive complected when the sun's out, so I don't know, it's a mystery to me.
Interesting. That's a good story. I think I know what happened with why you started seeing things after your
Really?
father passed. This is just my theory, but
Yeah.
there has been, like everyone knows, my move to Utica has had a lot of chaos.
Yes.
And there was something that happened different than Courage, where it was very traumatizing. And my guides kind of said, that's how deep you're going now. Like that
Wow.
so the loss
So-
of grief may have, like, even though it was bad, it may have gone so deep that it actually kind of opened up. Like, I always have that visual. I always say the angels showed me a stick. They showed me the middle and said, remember, when you open up both ways. So that may have been why suddenly you're seeing a lot more, because it went a level.
Yeah, and it makes sense because it definitely has been. It's been next level, and it's been one of those things that I've been keeping a dream journal, and I'm like, I can't predict anything. Like, don't rely on me for the lottery numbers, but I can tell you, the simpler things. But it and I always could before, but now it's kind of a new level of understanding and appreciation, and maybe that's what it is. The universe is like, you can handle it, so we're going to give you more. That's what you showed me too. So let's do it.
Yes.
Let's get weird.
Yes. And there is something, I had to make an adjustment in my readings, because it does feel like there's just another level coming. So making an adjustment in everything and how we see everything and protection and all that stuff, it's just kind of mandatory right now.
It is.
But that's fascinating. And I don't know a lot of people that have seen a jinn. That's so interesting.
What was crazy was the fur piece, because I would have just thought it was a strange young man right with him, and then when he was hiding his arm, his upper arm with his hand, and then he dropped it, and it was bear fur in the shape of like I think it was the infinity symbol, because it was a sideways like elongated 8, and it was like, then to do the research at home, and when I got to the part where they sometimes have patches of animal fur, I went, are you kidding me? Okay, universe, you got me good. Oh, wow.
I was afraid you were going to say the thing where their legs bend backwards, where they have goat legs and they bend backwards. And I was like,
well, he had on like basketball shorts, so I got to see his legs, but he had on like high top socks with sneakers, and so I couldn't see that. I do have another ghost story too.
Hit us with it.
It involves my daughters. Okay, so we were traveling in London, and the first hotel we stayed at was a fancy schmancy hotel that they just built. It was very modern, really fun. And then we always like to stay in two places. So then the second place we stayed was a very old hotel across from Kensington Gardens, and it's called the Milestone. It was back then. And the agreement between my daughters and myself is that we never talk about if we have any sort of ghost things happen in a hotel room until we're checked out and we're leaving the place. So anyway, so we get in the cab that takes us to Heathrow after that part of the stay, and we're all like talking at the same time. And the girls are like, there was this white orb behind you, Mom, the whole time we were there. And I said, what? And they were like, there was this white orb that was following you around. And I said, okay, that's interesting, because I kept waking up and hearing you guys in the other room going, Mom, Mom. And I kept getting up to check on you guys, and you were sound asleep. And then one night I woke up, and I felt something holding my hand, and I woke up, and it was a little girl in a little white dress holding my hand. And she called me Mom. And then the other thing that they revealed, I said, well, why were you guys keeping your room so tidy? Because you guys were making your beds in the morning. And these were like middle school kids and a teenager, like a high school teenager at this point. And I'm like, what was going on? They said, well, we had a scary old lady apparition in our room, and she was basically cursing at us in the bathroom that we needed to keep it neat.
Oh,
so
how funny.
So then when, of course, I love to do research. It's the author in me. So I started doing a deep dive on that building, and I found out that there was, it used to be an embassy of some type for a Russian czar. And he had a little girl with a nanny or governess that was like that older lady probably, and that lived there. And the little girl had passed away. So we're pretty certain that makes sense. So I wrote a Travelocity review about our rooms. Once a year I get an email that goes, I had something so weird in that room too. That's emailed to me.
That's interesting too, that maybe the nanny didn't pass away at the same time, but kind of stayed around. You know what I mean? Like when she passed, she was like, I got to go help that little girl. All right, hang on, folks. We'll be right back. More to talk about. This is fabulous.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and Prithvika is my collection of consciously created crystal and nature-forged jewelry. Prithvika translates to of the earth in Hindi, which represents the natural earth-made materials I'm working with, along with my personal ancestry and grounded energy. Each piece is created through ceremony and science, and completed with being Reiki charged. I'm currently featuring copper mirror necklaces, which can be used for protection and mirror magic. My intention is for your new piece of jewelry to feel like an extension of self, to help bring your desires to fruition and to amplify the magic within you. My Instagram is @Prithvika, and my website is prithvika.com. That's PRTHVEEKA.com.
Okay, so darling, what is of all the things you've covered, what is your favorite topic?
Oh, that's not even fair. So I think it's just most recently I did a deep dive into, I've started this thing called morning papers. I think a lot of people do it now.
Oh, yeah. And I tell everyone to do it because it's like automatic writing. Yes.
And why did I not get that? It is automatic writing. So I had a moment, and I kept getting this name Azrael, and I think I spelled it. I don't want to spell it wrong because I just misspelled it completely, but I scribbled down what I was hearing, and it said, look up Azrael, and it's like, love is the key. And it was like, listen, obey, verify, execute, or whatever. And I went, okay, this is really weird. So I look it up on the internet, and I find out that Azrael is known as the angel of death. But he doesn't cause death. He actually is just there to hold our hand as we're going into the great beyond, and whatever's next. And but he physically isn't the one that like does away with us.
Right.
And he is the one that stands with us as we're doing a life review. And so, but what I didn't know until I started doing the research is he's available to contact any time to do a life review. And a lot of the near death experiencers, they found that that was the most profound part of their near death experience, is that kind of looking back at their life like a movie reel and having this angel there with them to kind of soften the blow of the hard parts
Okay,
or help
this
them.
is why I contacted you. I would see your
What?
posts and I was like, you got to have her on the podcast. And I was like, okay, but I want a life review. Thank you for that.
Oh, Karen, oh my gosh. Okay, so I am new to the whole meditation thing. I do meditation, but I did post, and I mean, my audio engineer, he did what he could to make it sound spiffy, but it's awkward because I'm just putting it out there. It's not a scary negative. Let's contact the Grim Reaper. It's
No.
literally, hey, Azrael, I am ready for a life review, and will you hold my hand when we go through the hard parts, like the painful parts where somebody maybe did something wrong to us, and then help us so that the next time we look back on that moment, it's never as painful. And will you help me to go through the parts where I really messed up, which God knows I have, and help me to see that I did the best I could at the time. And the other thing I put in the meditation is, and it's like a quick 9 minutes, but I remind people that sometimes the download from a meditation isn't coming behind your eyelids during the meditation. We open up that channel to say, Azrael, you can come to us in dreams. It can come tomorrow when we're done with a run and stretching out, and it comes in a full download. So it's just kind of a way to gently acclimate all of us to death, but then getting the benefits of a life review right now to get that clarity and that sense of purpose. So,
Oh, I think that's great. And I feel like all these things, even when we get the information, it has to be integrated. And I don't think we could take it all in at once. And I think I've said this probably on the last 3 podcasts, but I feel like art is now mandatory because we can't take everything in through words, but we're actually absorbing the information by doing something creative, or it's being downloaded into us. And I feel like that, exactly what you said, it may not be right now, but there's sort of Easter eggs like in a video game where you can just get stuff all of a sudden.
I agree. And maybe what it is, because I alluded to it, but my family knows it. When I was going through the buildup of my dad being hospitalized, the only way I could get my brain to just slow down and start digesting what was actually happening in real life is to do these Lego sets. So I literally come rob my house and you will get every sort of Harry Potter Lego set there's ever been. Because God loved my husband of 25 years, is he just bought me stacks of these Harry Potter sets. And I'd sit there and I'd do them. But I learned that manipulatives, using your fingers, your hands, your brain in that way, shuts down the fight or flight, and it opens up a channel in us to be able to deal with emotional harm, scars, healing that needs to be done. So what you're saying about the art, it resonates so clear and true to me, because if you're doing art, your brain is not in, oh my God, the world's on fire mode. It's in, I'm drawing a flower, or I'm just, whatever it's in. And then your brain can just slow down, and then your body, your emotional body, can kind of catch up and heal and absorb.
That makes so much sense. And the other thing too, yes, because it's very funny that it's Legos, or when we try to get my mom that has dementia, we have her color, and now adults are coloring, and I am always trying to learn to draw or do something on my Procreate program, but I've literally gone to a mandala and coloring it, and it really is sort of like the best thing ever. And I know someone else that has molding clay around, and he's always just rubbing molding clay. And I think it's so weird. Isn't it weird how everybody's sort of doing something, I want to say childish, that is helping psychologically?
Well, but how much of what we did as children was so much healthier than the imbalance we have now as adults,
Oh yeah.
right? And so it's kind of getting us back to that self. I mean, it's been my goal as a mother not to, these kids just came out in the world perfect. It's been my goal to not screw them up because they are such perfect souls. And it's reminded me to get back to that. I think a lot of people don't want to because they have to do the hard work of going, I have a hurt child there. But that's part of the meditations that I'm trying to offer too, is that going back to that younger version of yourself that actually was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and optimistic before they got hurt, but get in the moment where that changed and give your past self some love and put your arms around past self, because then it helps people get past that barrier and we can start claiming that playfulness that we had as children, that freedom of thought and that we had as kids. So I think what you're saying, it means we all need to do more of that.
Yes. And also, this is something, and I tell my clients this because this has been my experience, but I feel like that you used to spend 20 years in therapy digging up this stuff and you felt bad all the time. I feel like sometimes it's a bolt of lightning and you just go, oh, I'm done. I'm done with that. Yep. And that's never been before. I think that's the energetic beings we're becoming.
I think so too. I love, oh my gosh. So you have been a lifeline to me and you didn't even know it because you were the first podcast that I binged after I lost my dad. I'm like, I just need to know I'm not crazy and what I'm getting from the universe. And bless your heart for being out there and being there, because I know I speak for so many people right now when I say that. But then I next found Jessa Reed, and she had that episode where she's like, stop going through your shadow. You did it. You did the shadow work. Just stop. Take the summer off. And I just re-listened to that last week and I laughed so hard. I was crying. I needed like a wee pad. I was laughing so hard.
Yes. There's a very funny, you know how on Instagram and TikTok, they use, the audio of something else, and it's always somebody puts their dog up, and it's something like, so I'm not going to work on myself anymore. I'm all done. I am just going to watch TV. It's something like that. And I totally agree with that, because I am so driven that sometimes it's like, what are you trying to get to? Sometimes you just have to go, today's okay. Today's just going to be okay. Right?
Exactly. It's like, that was me during COVID. And why did I let go of that? Every day I woke up and I said, my only goal is today not to be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. And that was my only goal. And then I'd write it on my to-do list and then I'd scratch it off. It's like, I wasn't a jerk.
That's so funny.
I agree with you.
I have to say, for some reason I wasn't. COVID didn't scare me. I don't know why, but I had been, this is the life I miss, which was I do my readings during the day and I was out doing a show every night, and I had other friends and we were all like that. And so actually when COVID hit, the lockdown hit, there actually was like this, I can rest and not feel guilty. And of course I was in California, so everyone was out walking all the time because why stay inside? I can't imagine what New York City, people sitting in tiny, oh my God, I'd kill myself sitting in a tiny apartment, right? But it was like this I had such a great lockdown.
I felt like we kind of worked it too, because my high schooler, she was like, this was better to me and a better alternative than going to high school this year. This sounds really great. And, just made it work for her. And it was, it was hard because I had, the other one was 2 states away. And it's like, because the rules, I didn't really want to do the traveling, but of course we had to. But we felt like we kind of hacked the system too. And we tried to make it work for us. I'm glad to be back in real life though. I just missed seeing people's faces, and hugging people. I'm a serial hugger. So I'm like a smusher. So smush your bones, so I miss kind of that.
Yeah, well, you know what, too, and this is what I hope. I think people got a little too locked in, and now I want them to get out more, and everybody's in bed by 9. It's very weird all over the place, so that was the damage. But I hope by the time this comes out, we've made some sort of change, or I'm just waiting for the revolution. I'm just waiting for everything to kind of come back around. But okay, so now, is there anything in the paranormal or something where you're like, oh, I want nothing to do with that? Because I know, like it's kind of, I don't know if you heard the episode or know Ryan Singer. He had a terrifying experience with that thing called a rake. And every time I look at that, I'm like, yeah, that's one. In fact, it's so funny to me because I do really enjoy that show, Paranormal. Is it Paranormal Witness or something where, no,
it's something like that.
Caught on tape.
Yes.
And, they're getting a little thin now where they're kind of, some of them, I have a friend that's on there and he's such a kind of a diplomat and, cause they have to come up with something or they're not going to get called back. And I
exactly
hearing him go, well, if there was going to be a unicorn, this is exactly where you'd see it. Like he's never saying it's just if there was, but they had one where they had two. They had one where the guys are taping. They're in, I think they were in Pakistan or something, and they were saying that they were looking for a jinn, and then things start moving and fire starts coming, and they start moving closer to the fire. And I was like, no, because the same thing with this one, they thought they had a rake, and they were like, well, we're just going to wait here because we're locked in. And I was like, anyone that's been on an investigation knows you're listening to a lot of silence. So when something happens, your senses are so heightened that you would not be standing like these people were like, oh, did you hear that thing scream? That thing that I've never seen before that's a supernatural creature that could kill me? Let's wait here. So I think that is one. Or when Bigfoot, there's a lot of stories of that camping and Bigfoot shakes your camper because they don't want you there. That's the cryptos creep me out.
Yeah, that's me too. Okay, I was like, if they respect the boundary, and it's like, I'm like, you know what? I'm in a meat suit. I know I'm stronger than them. I got this, get away energy. I'm getting better about that. I haven't tattooed symbols on my body yet, but
I'm going to do that with Archangel Michael on my neck, on the back of my neck.
That's what I know. That's what I'm thinking too. But the crypto thing freaks me out. I was just listening to a podcast. I can't even tell you which one it was this morning when I was running, and they were, it was Art Bell vault tapes. I love Art Bell.
He was the best.
Vault tapes. I know. And so he was doing a ghost to ghost, in the lead up to Halloween. And somebody was playing for him this noise that they taped in the woods of Bigfoot. And I thought, that is really too much. It's like I couldn't really feel like in the woods I could set a boundary where they would respect it. It's like, here's the salt circle around this tent, Bigfoot. It's like those noises are so terrifying. And so I think that's where my limit is. I wouldn't go Bigfoot hunting, but and even like, like your episode with Diet, that was really, it was really interesting to listen to, but it was really spooky. And it's like, I don't really want to tap into anything super dark, but I do respect that there's darkness and light in all of us. So it's like, I'm not inviting that in. And I don't know. I think I'm a baby a little bit. I like things that respect our boundaries a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing, there was somebody I knew, a comic I knew that was he was a Bigfoot hunter, and he really came very close to him. And, these guys like, oh, I got my camera. And he was like, no, that moment was so surreal that you're not thinking, hold up my camera. You're like, oh my God, what is this? And, I think he didn't do it after that, but it's funny because I didn't realize how one of the weirdest stories when I interviewed a Bigfoot guy on my thing was about someone that their car got stuck and it got very late. And this is in Pennsylvania where there's a lot of that. And he was like, well, I'm going to run to the highway. So he gets out of his car, turns around, runs right into this Bigfoot and it beat him up. And that's the part people don't talk about. And I think it is an interdimensional creature that can go in and out.
I do too.
But
I just read a book about that.
Yeah. I think they're animals. It's like a stray, and like in this dimension, a stray dog. So it's a little different than even an angelic being or a demonic being, where there seems to be a little bit of a system. But but oh my God, this hour flew by.
It did fly by.
All right, my new friend, tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, just look on socials. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook or Twitter as Curious Cat Podcast. So look there and you will find me and tell me your scoop, and maybe I'll drag you into my show.
There you go. Well, I think it's December, so I'm going to say a happy holidays to you early, my friend, and thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Oh, thanks for asking me. Take care, and take care to all the listeners too. Thanks for reaching out.
All right. And thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media and everybody. I will see you next week, or hopefully see you on the Patreon. Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen.